Ladies and gentlemen, please extend a very warm welcome to the 47th Premier of New South Wales, Chris Mills, as we embark on a meaningful journey at the Indian Subcontinent Multicultural Forum. We also welcome MP Warren Selby, Member of Riverstone. Warren is founder and co-chair of Parliamentary Friends of Kenya. Welcome.
I'll be only asking 3 questions because of the time limit. I want you to interact more with the audience than me asking you questions. The first question, Premier, how has this role personally influenced the way you approach tasks and manage your family responsibility? Because you've got a young family.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Rajesh, and thank you for inviting me, and thanks everybody for taking time away from your busy lives, businesses and practices, and Warren's busy all the time, so it's good to see him as well. I really appreciate it. I think it's an opportunity to have a two-way dialogue to get our communities closer, for us to have a deeper understanding on the Indian subcontinent community in New South Wales, and also, hopefully, for us to explain some of our decisions. And when we get it right, celebrate that fact and double down on it, and where we need to do better, to hear it directly from the community. I love these forums, and I think that we should do more of them in politics. In terms of my family responsibilities, if I'm going to be honest, I think like a lot of people in this room, I'm finding it difficult. I do a lot of hours a week, and you need to do that when you're the Premier of New South Wales. I'm not whinging about it or complaining. I wanted the job, so I can't complain now. But if I'm being honest, a lot of the pressure and the burden falls on my wife. I shouldn't say burden. A lot of the responsibility falls on my wife. And yeah, you've got to make an effort. So we worked all weekend, Saturday, Sunday, came back to Sydney. I quickly put the kids in the car, we drove down to the beach, had a surf, threw the football around, came home, went to bed. So that's sort of what we do, rinse and repeat.
I think you look very fresh. The second is reflecting on the first 6 months in the office. Could you share some primary challenges your government has encountered? Especially, what would you identify the top 3 challenges, and could you elaborate on the strategies and action being taken by you?
Yeah. Well, good question. I think the biggest challenge facing the government and the people of New South Wales is inflation and the effect on interest rates. Household budgets, businesses, the rising costs of capital, the rising cost of debt in the community. It's putting enormous burdens on families right now, and we haven't had this level of inflation in the Australian economy for decades. It's now washing its way through the world, but also in Australia as well, and it's putting enormous pressure on families and small businesses. So if I'm going to be honest, I'd say that's first, second, and third. Ensuring that we're doing everything we possibly can to put downward pressure on inflation, to help families, to sustain businesses, and get us through this very tricky period. And we're focused on it every single day of the week. One of the reasons why we went to the election and said, whatever we do, whatever programs we pursue, we will not be raising taxes in New South Wales. The family household budget and businesses are tight enough, and you can't squeeze blood from a stone. So look, there's many challenges in the state, and I feel like we deal with them well, but that's number 1.
Thank you for not taxing more. Labor is a minority government. What challenges does it face, and did you expect that would be the case at the time of elections?
Yeah. Well, we fell quite a few seats short, and that really close margins. So there's a whole bunch of seats that Labor nearly won that were on less than 1% or less than 2%. But you can't complain about that. That's our system, that's democracy. And it's a huge privilege to be in government with, in all but 1 or 2 bills we've passed, I think, over 50 bills in a short space of time in the last 6 months, and in all but 1 or 2 we didn't have the numbers. So that success rate is pretty high, and a lot of them are contested, and there's a lot of ballots. Our approach to it is pretty straightforward. This is what we think we need to do for the state, for the economy, for essential services. It's now over to you. We respect the Parliament, but we believe this is essential for New South Wales, and we're prepared to put our shoulder into it, make the argument, answer questions, go on radio, talk to the community, have public forums. you've got to be honest with the public. Not all decisions are going to be popular, and not every decision will be supported by everyone in the state. And any government that tells you that you can have legislation that's supported by everyone all the time will be a terrible government. Because at the end of the day, you have to make decisions. And making good decisions over and over again, in my view, is the hallmark of a successful government.
Premier, I should thank you that you are interacting with Indian subcontinent people. I've not seen that type of interaction from any Premier in the last 2 decades. Thank you for doing it. And I'll give the mic to you if you want to interact or say something to the audience. And after that, we'll have a Q&A.
Yeah.
You too.
Well, the only thing I'd like to say is that's a lovely recognition, thank you. And we need to do that, and we want to do that. One of the outstanding successes for New South Wales Labor in March was increased level of support from the Indian community in New South Wales. And I want to make this really clear. There's many different views in the Indian community in New South Wales, many different views. There's rock solid Labor voters and there's very, very entrenched coalition voters. So this doesn't apply to everyone equally, but Warren and I were thrilled at the level of success we got from the Indian community in Sydney, and I want to make it very clear, we take absolutely nothing for granted, nothing. We know we have to earn that vote and that it's renewed every 4 years. And we want the voters of New South Wales to be tough markers. We want you to be tough markers, because if you're tough markers on us, we'll be a better government as a result of it. And that's our philosophy. It's pretty straightforward. I think in politics and in government, people overcomplicate it. It doesn't have to be complex. This can be a good government because it listens and then it acts.
Yeah, for the Q&A sessions, we request each participant to briefly introduce themselves before posing their question. I'll start with the questions that we already received from some participants, and then if time allows, we'll open the forum. So I'm going to ask the youngest participant here, Vidyana.
Thank you. Congratulations, Premier, on all the amazing work you've done for us so far. We look forward to seeing what else you've got in store. I am a pharmacist, and my question relates around pharmacy and medications. So we all know that there is a considerable amount of burden on hospitals and doctors at the moment, and I believe pharmacists are at the forefront to relieve this burden. In states such as Queensland, there is a trial being conducted that's starting in next month actually, for the full scope of pharmacies. I'm just wondering, when will this be implemented in New South Wales? And if so, what is the procedure? How will it be implemented, please?
Great question. Thank you for the work you do as a pharmacist. A difficult job, but so essential in our community. A couple of things I'd just say about health. You're absolutely right. The pressure on our public hospital system is immense and growing. We've made good efforts and major strides in elective surgery in New South Wales over the last 9 months, but we haven't made anywhere near the improvement that we need to make in emergency departments. We know that, and we're determined to do something about it. Part of the solution to this, and there's not a silver bullet, we have to do many things at the same time, but part of the solution is working more with pharmacies. I think you're right, Queensland is the national leader when it comes to scope of practice changes, whether it's the contraceptive pill or greater access to other parts of medical work, for example, vaccinations and full scope. They're leading their country. We're watching their changes very closely, and we'll make decisions in New South Wales. But we've got a trial at the moment in relation to that previous Queensland decision for family planning. I think there's about 2,000 or 3,000 pharmacies that have already signed up to that, so that's encouraging. We'll monitor that closely and look to ensure that we've got responsible changes to scope of practice that are consistent with healthcare in the state. One of the advantages of being a federation is that you can look at other jurisdictions that have maybe similar age demographic or similar income distribution and see it works in their jurisdiction. I'm happy to be a thief when it comes to good ideas. I'll grab them, steal them, and implement them here if they work.
Chris, thanks for coming. I'm Chandra Tolani, we met a couple of times before. The question she's got.
Your question about the housing.
Well, we got a lot of shortage of housing in New South Wales.
Yeah.
I know you're doing something a lot about it in Rose Hill.
Yeah.
But where the railway stations are there, if you approve around that area, you don't have to build another infrastructure further down.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you have to bring the railway station. The railway station there should give high-rise approvals, easily. It's not happening.
100%.
You're absolutely right, and that's exactly what we've done. We announced 30 sites across metropolitan Sydney on train stations, and within 400 metres, we'll take over the plan to stop the local council saying no more. Because what we're seeing right across Sydney is local councils will say, oh, we don't want any more development in our community.
Can you take the
Every
mic
time
around?
they say no to a house or a development, they're saying no to a young family who are trying to get on that first rung of the ladder in Sydney. And when I was a young man, the question many people asked was, will I ever be able to afford to buy a place in New South Wales? A lot of young people now say, I can't even afford to rent a place. And we're losing our best and brightest to other jurisdictions. Can I give you some statistics which go to this issue and why New South Wales is particularly bad? We've got the highest population, we've got the highest anticipated increase in population, we have the highest property prices, the highest median property prices, the highest rents, the largest increase in rents, the largest increase in housing prices, and yet on the east coast in New South Wales we're last for building approvals and completions per capita. Last year we had 48,000 new houses or dwellings. Victoria, with a smaller population, had 58,000. So we're letting our young people down, we're not saying yes enough. And that's one of the reasons why we made a big decision to work with the Australian First Club in relation to Rose Hill to kickstart it. Almost like a hard starter for an emergency department. To say we've got to turn this around. Because we're saying to young Australians, a lot of young Australians, you don't have a place to live in Sydney. We're not going to let you start your journey in this city. So we have to turn it around, and we've made some decisions that they've generated some controversy this morning, and the newspaper, some newspapers are reporting opposition to the plans, but in my view they are essential. And Sydney is not a small city, it's a major international metropolis, and our housing prices are exponentially growing, and we cannot look young people in the eye anymore and say, you don't have a place in this city. It's not fair to them.
Welcome to the forum. Wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you and your team. My question is, I'm in logistics for the last 32 years since John's 27 years ago my own. What I found of is this: when you talk about inflation starts with supply chain. Inflation starts with supply chain. And I have figured out that after the ports have become privatized, the cost of operations in the port was exponentially gone high. Now, to give you an understanding of this, when I started my career in 1992 here, a particular container, port charges would be $240. Transportation charges would be $380. There's $620 to deliver within 50 kilometers radius. Now it is $2,100. The promise of taking away the ports from the country and giving to privatization, they promise three things: one, efficiency; two, cost; two, performance. In all the three, we have failed. We had 80,000 laborers, and now we have got 10% of them. And the money goes to TPP World, which is Dubai, or Packways, which is owned most probably by Japanese, and SESPL owned by Hong Kong based. Now, we drift all our money outside, and this is the common man who paid $1.60 per kilo of rice, paying $2.75. again, to say that, oh, we are controlling inflation, what actions are being taken?
Yeah. Well, look, a couple of things in relation to inflation. It's devilish in the economy, it's terrible. And one of the most frustrating parts of it is that unlike in a recession, when government can make an intervention in the economy, prop up a business, jump into an industry, have income support, for example, to sustain parts of jobs and creation of businesses, when you do that in a high inflation environment, you add to the problem because you're stimulating the economy at the exact wrong time. So we're being responsible with our spending. We are ensuring that we're living within our means and we're not adding to the Commonwealth and Reserve Bank's problem when it comes to inflation, because it's ruinous for the economy in the long run. In relation to privatisation, I completely agree with you. And it's not just happening in the ports. I don't like to get too political because there's enough time for politics, but I have to say that the previous government's decision to privatise not just the ports, but the ports, electricity and energy and toll roads, the big losers as a result of that decision were businesses. Other businesses, a lot of small and medium-sized enterprises, and there's a couple of reasons for that. They're monopolies, effectively, and they're essential infrastructure. And more often than not, other countries' sovereign wealth funds are buying our infrastructure. So we are privatising government assets and they're being bought up by other country national governments in some instances. It's a silly decision. We're doing our best, whether it's a toll cap on the tolls, whether it's a process to unwind the port deals, in particular legislation that was passed in the Parliament last year in relation to the Newcastle port. But it's hard. Once they're sold off, it's very difficult. So we've ruled a line in the sand and said critical infrastructure for New South Wales must remain in government hands. And I think it's been a mistake to sell it off. Now, selling off government assets at that scale feels good for a little while. Why? Because you get a big upfront check. As soon as that money's spent, you're behind. And you're behind forever. Because the asset's gone, the income stream's gone, and now it's owned by a private company. And what I can promise you is we will make decisions not just in terms of the government's bottom line and budget position, but also businesses and how they're operating in New South Wales. We want to be a magnet for new businesses and entrepreneurs in the state.
Premier, welcome. Thank you once again for trying to make the diaspora. Premier, my question is around IT. The Treasurer, the current Treasurer, Dan Multimeter, put some advance about IT and the way it was managed, and so and rightly so. Yeah. But he's going to be quiet since then. I know he's got a lot to do, but businesses are hurting with the premiums they're paying, the cost of claims and mismanagement, and you talk about privatisation. Perhaps that's one that should go back to privatisation. It's not being handled well. It's a big burden on the financial of the state. And those who are involved in managing IKEA are not managed. They're mismanaging it. Is there some kind of reform that may come through sometime soon in the first term of your government?
Thanks so much. I mean, look, I wouldn't recommend privatising it because it does need to be underwritten by the government, and if that wasn't the case, then it went to capital markets, then market forces would apply, and I couldn't predict what the premiums would be for industry and businesses in particular. But what I would say is you're right. When we were elected, the recommendation from IKEA was for a double-digit increase on premiums for businesses. We rejected that and had a more modest increase to keep the fund solvent while we produced and attempted reform in IKEA. We know we need to do more. We know that it's falling disproportionately on a lot of small businesses, and we don't want to be in a position where people go out of business, or the costs, the business costs, the input cost of businesses are so extreme that it means New South Wales becomes uncompetitive. One area of reform that we have announced that is a major benefit for business and has been endorsed by Business New South Wales and a lot of the chambers of commerce across the state is insurance reform. New South Wales is the only state in Australia that taxes your insurance, your private insurance, on business and on households. And in many instances, it's one of the leading reasons why the uninsured or underinsured rate in New South Wales is the highest of any place in the country. Our insurance is the second highest of any jurisdiction in the country behind Queensland, which is subject to tropical thunderstorms and a lot of natural disasters. So we've made a decision to remove the tax that's currently on insurance and instead apply it at a rate at property rather than on businesses. Now, that will be a major incentive to take out insurance. It should drop insurance premiums for businesses in New South Wales and ensure that we are competing on a like-for-like basis across all jurisdictions in the country. And that'll be a big reform. It's going to be controversial, but it's essential. At the moment, that tax on insurance is acting as a disincentive for businesses and households to take out insurance, and that's completely unsustainable. So thanks for your question.
Our next participant is Veena Sejwala. We should all congratulate Veena as she has been selected as a finalist Problem Solver Award at the Shaping Australia Awards 2023. I believe you have something very innovative to share with us today as well.
Thank you for the opportunity to share, and Premier, lovely to see you again. I just wanted to mention, of course, I think we've talked a lot about manufacturing, and I really applaud your points around encouraging and supporting small businesses and entrepreneurs. The work, of course, that's happening at the University of New South Wales around taking what is considered as a waste, that of course then is causing burden on our landfills, but seeing that as a valuable resource and raw material for manufacturing. And where the connectivity, of course, is very much linked to the points you've been making around, building and providing homes, affordable and sustainable homes, for people who live in New South Wales, is also directly connected to our ability to manufacture a lot of these products that we need, to put into our homes, like, for example, our tiles and so on. Without kind of boring you with a lot of detail, your Minister for Environment, Minister Penny Sharp, visited our micro factory on Friday actually. I'll let her tell you what she felt about it. But I guess what was really impressive from her perspective is the fact that not only are these materials that are directly taken out of landfills, so it's the micro factories in Nowra, we've set it up on the tip site, so at Shoalhaven Council, taking directly waste resources coming from the tip itself. I guess the benefits are, that means one, it's a local supply chain, and you're creating, in a way, world's first high performance products. That means what's sustainable is also going to be affordable. That's really the big difference. When we talk sustainability, the question becomes, can it create local jobs? Of course. Can we do it at the right scale? So microfactories are really about proving that you can commercialize products and do it in a way that benefits regional communities in New South Wales. So I guess from my perspective, really to be able to highlight some of these points is that we've now demonstrated that effectively you can take waste resources, do manufacturing it, and really provide those local jobs. Just as a bit of an information, we started commercializing this. The science has been going on for a while, but commercialization really took off this year. Just in a short span of 1 year, we've created 20 jobs. So that's just an example of one, micro factory in Nowra. So I guess for us, what's been exciting in engaging with Minister Sharp on Friday is to see the excitement, and also now listening to everything you've said around the opportunities to provide more homes for young people, particularly make it affordable, because of course, to your point, the cost of living is going up. I did bring in a few little samples, beautiful stories in a lot of these. This one has got old beanies and waste glass. This white one's got a lot of fabric that's gone in from our waste mattresses, all of the things that our local councils, of course, are responsible for collecting. So I guess the long-winded part of that question in there is thinking about that whole bigger picture around when we talk recycling and remanufacturing and creating jobs, do you see that whole new ecosystem you're creating, which I love, by the way, creating local homes, 25,000 I think is the number that you said just at the Rose Hill, if I remember correctly. Regardless of that, products need to be manufactured that go into making. Do you see an opportunity to connect what we can do in caring for our environment, caring for our people, and how do you, if at all, how do you see that happen?
Thank you, Nina. If I could just start by thanking you for the work that you do at UNSW. I think we can all agree that notwithstanding our world-class public education system and research universities, the country has not done a great job of commercialising innovation and breakthroughs from a research level. And there's one big exception, and that's UNSW. And there's been an amazing focus on problem solving, but also having a real practical approach to what's happening in the real economy. And you deserve a lot of credit for that, as do your peers at that university. I think the whole state and country can learn more from that. This is, if you look globally, economies that derive a lot of wealth and drive a lot of exports as a result of natural resources historically have not done as good a job as they could when it comes to research and development and commercialisation, and we've got to do better. The reason for that is not because we don't like mining. We like mining, that's a big part of our economy, particularly critical minerals into the future, but we've got to be diverse as well, and we have to have a complex economy. And a complex economy means that if one part of the global supply chain stalls or there's a dip in demand in relation to a specific part of the world's economy, it can be filled by another part of our complex economy in New South Wales. There's no reason why we can't achieve it either. World-class research universities, a wonderful public education system, billions and billions of dollars of private capital, international private capital that's desperate to invest right here in New South Wales, property rights, a stable economy. And I think most Australians still believe, regardless of our differences, that we each have more in common with each other than we do differences. Now you put all of those together and stack them on top of one another, and that is a powerful international story, not just for our economy, but our community. And as a result of that, I think the sky's the limit. I genuinely do. In relation to your specific question, I think the real opportunity for that is the government's decision to have a patent book when it comes to new housing designs. We've announced an international competition to have architects from around the world come to Sydney and design a standard, if you like, unit block and terrace house. And the reason for that is, for a builder that wants to make the jump from freestanding houses to apartment building, then there'll be a standard design for them to grab and apply at scale. And that's a great opportunity for recycled goods to be part of that product stream, if you like. And I think that could be really exciting for New South Wales.
Julia, and good to see you again. So basically, this question is with a dual hat on.
Yes.
One as a business owner, obviously, and the second being heavily involved in the bilateral business space with India and Australia. My question to you, which I have actually asked a couple of more, previously some more premiers, and I have to say I haven't received very satisfactory answers to it. Not putting you on the block, but I'd really like to hear from you. How would you attract businesses, international businesses to New South Wales? And what sort of incentives would you provide to these businesses to come to New South Wales? Now, obviously, based in New South Wales, I'm very keen to see how we can get New South Wales literally in the front block, as it were, as a first front runner to be considered for any businesses that are coming either from India or anywhere else to come first to NSW before they consider Victoria or Queensland or any other state.
Yep.
Over to you, Premier.
Thank you. Well, a good question, a difficult one to answer. It's not possible to offer globalised incentives. It really has to be done on an industry basis or a particular foreign investment opportunity. generally speaking, in terms of capital markets and investment opportunities, since I've become Premier, I've had people from Korea, Japan, Germany, a big interest from Central Europe, a big interest from increasingly the United States, and also major delegations from the subcontinent, in particular India. So there's more than enough interest in foreign investment for New South Wales, more than we can probably handle, if I'm going to be honest. And that goes to everything from critical minerals, to existing mining tenements and leases, to education, to tourism, to services and fintech and emerging technologies. What we need to do better is explain the enormous change in New South Wales, particularly in the last 10 years. The fastest growing community in this state is the Indian subcontinent community. And we're talking about a group of people who love their country, who are highly educated, who are particularly motivated, particularly in areas of commerce and industry, and are disproportionately overrepresented when it comes to entrepreneurs. So we've got a giant diaspora that is multilingual, that has access to one of the greatest and largest and fastest growing economies in the world. And frankly, I don't think we do a good enough job of exploring those people-to-people, business-to-business opportunities. Because that's a huge advantage for New South Wales, a massive advantage. If we can get that right and say to our community in New South Wales, we want you to do business here and in the subcontinent and all around the world, but establish your business right here, then you'll see self-perpetuating growth that's driven by young Australian kids that have an Indian heritage. It's a massive opportunity for New South Wales. And I think I've got to do a better job of explaining those advantages and then saying to a young person that maybe lives in Western Sydney that has Indian heritage, we want you to back yourself. We want you to start a business. We want you to potentially borrow some capital or work hard and get your own capital and invest in yourself, because the benefits for New South Wales and Australia are limitless if we get it right.
We have time for one last question from Uri Vajrani.
You already answered part of it. My question was about development. You are doing everything peace development. That's excellent thing you have done. Bruce Bear, Jean. You are revisiting, which is an excellent thing, and your view on mainly corridors are observing that shows relation to other stations. I do have some attention holding badly, so what you do and learning is just with that. No, the part of Waterloo they have ignored the last time, the council ignored. I do more into that part and repeat self-developments, Heath Square and the metro, coming up metro. The same goes to the city to Ramadai right at the station. And you get light on.
Yeah. It's difficult for me to comment about the specific one, other than to say, of course, we want to work with builders and developers and bringing onto the market world-class quality developments, which we know developers and builders in New South Wales want to bring to market, and doing it in a way where it's located on public transport infrastructure. And really, we want to work with you on that. We want to work with you on that, and we think it's important for the state. One of the key changes I think that we've been able to as a government to articulate, Warren and me and my peers, Daniel Mookie, the Treasurer, and Prue Carr, the Deputy Premier of New South Wales, has been to say for the first time, if we say no to builders and developers, and if we just keep telling them no, well, where are people going to live? And trying to bring that to the forefront of the debate so that we can have some common sense decisions when it comes to completions of buildings. And you know, those statistics merely that I mentioned about Queensland and Victoria, they're damning on New South Wales. We've got the biggest economy, we've got the biggest population, and yet we're last when it comes to housing costs. So You might have a business that's not in construction, and it may not be in development, but I guarantee you you've got a labour shortage problem at the moment. I guarantee you. And who could criticise a young person in particular when you consider how difficult it is to live and work in Sydney? So how can you help me and how can you help the state? Quite genuinely, you're going to read in the newspaper and you're going to see some politicians, some of them might be on my team and some of them might be on the other side's team, who say we don't want development, or there's too much development going ahead, or the government's plans for infill are wrong. Challenge them. And you don't need to get into a fight with them, but you can just ask them a really simple question. Well, if not there, then where? And if they come back to you and they say, well, nowhere, well, you've got your answer. Because that's not a solution for Sydney. And it's not fair for Sydney either. And that's where we really need your help. We need to make this public argument, but we can't do it by ourselves. We need regular people, business owners, those right throughout metropolitan Sydney to say, we agree with the government here. People have to live somewhere. The implications of not getting this right are just too extreme. And I want to say a couple of things. This isn't party political because there's some people on the Labor Party side that don't agree with the government's plans. And there is a few people on the Liberal and National side that do agree with our plans. And have said so publicly, and they deserve a lot of credit for that, genuinely, because that's not an easy thing for them to do. So this is not really party political, it's just about driving the right agenda for the state. Young Australians, giving young Australians an opportunity. That's all we're asking for.
Thank you. And lastly, we extend our appreciation to Nihal Bar for very graciously hosting this forum. Thank you very much for having last 3 successful years behind them. Thank you very much. And Premier, I request you to say a few words.
Thank you, Nihal Bar, and thanks to everybody for coming in today. I've really enjoyed this. I think we should do it. If you're free, we should do it more often. I know you're all busier than I am, but I really enjoy the exchange. I think we'll be a better government for it because we can hear firsthand what people are saying. And it's all out in the open. It's being recorded. People can look at it. They can hold the government to account. But I can also explain what the challenges are and why we've made different decisions. So this is what good politics is all about. That's why Australia is such a wonderful country, because we can hold events like this, talk about the future and do it in a constructive, friendly way. So I genuinely appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.